there's this weird middle ground that we have to hit between hitting the sweet spot to satisfy the algorithm, and then hitting the sweet spot to actually satisfy the user intent.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the HighLevel Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing. And today I am joined by Jonathan Kiekbusch. He is the founder and CEO of SEO Butler, which is a 6-year-old, 7-figure productized SEO service. Jonathan, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Chase. I'm really excited.
Thanks for staying up. I assume it's kind of late for you right now.
It's not so bad. I mean, it's just it's only 5 p.m. But obviously at the time of recording, it's getting to that time of year where it feels like the days are getting shorter and shorter, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Jonathan, we're going to talk about SEO today, which I'm excited about. I used to be, when I was running an agency, very close with our SEO lead, and I was always fascinated by his processes and all the new things that he would discover and what we would do for clients. But his years have gone by since. So I'm excited to get sort of an update on the state of the union, what you're seeing in the industry and whatnot. And I'd love to start with content. You know, back in the day, I feel like it was like you paid somebody to do SEO content, and that meant 500-word blog posts. Where are we at today? What are we seeing for 2021 when it comes to SEO content?
Sure. Well, a lot has changed since the days where you could just kind of publish anything, and as long as it was unique, it would rank. Long gone are the days of being able to just keyword stuff a piece of content and get away with it, unfortunately. Fortunately for the consumer, and unfortunately for the marketers. What we're seeing in the search engines is that with every algorithm update and with every change that's coming, the search engines are trying to improve the quality of the websites that they're serving to users that are searching for something, right? And that might seem really kind of fundamental and basic, but at the same time, what it actually translates to from a marketing perspective is that for not really for the first time, but for the first time, we're really having to think about different intent levels when we're creating content. We're having to think about, how do users search? How do they behave? What are they thinking about before they've actually discovered that our product is the solution? And how do we kind of create that content funnel that pulls someone in? Because we're not in the world of PPC. We're not in the world of, marketing on Facebook. We're having to reverse engineer what people are searching for, and then at the same time reverse engineer what the search engine wants to see. And so what we're finding when we're working on our clients' campaigns is that there's this weird middle ground that we have to hit between hitting the sweet spot to satisfy the algorithm, and then hitting the sweet spot to actually satisfy the user intent. And what that's meant is that some pieces need to be really short and super to the point, and you asked a question, here's the answer. And then other pieces are these long, 4,000 word essays leading somebody into the desired action that we're trying to get them to take.
Yeah, that's a tricky balance, right? You mentioned updates. We're filming this on December, what is today, the 23rd. There was an update not too long ago, right?
Yeah, there was a broad core algorithm update, which is one of a couple that they release every year, which is one of the few that is actually announced. So we're now in a phase where the algorithm is constantly updating itself all the time, just because of the amount of machine learning that's involved in the Google algorithm. But every now and then, it's almost like they hit the reset switch and they're saying, okay, we've got all of these really big quality features that we're going to roll out. And instead of trying to roll them out one by one, we're just going to put them all into a massive update. So the big update that came out just at the end of November, I want to say beginning of December, was one that once again disrupted the industry. A lot of people were quite upset at Google about some of the things that happened. Now, the direction it seems to be going in is user experience on the website. So Google announced earlier this year that they would be looking a lot more at things like website speed and at dwell time and at how users are actually behaving on websites, how compatible those websites are with the browsers that are being used to actually visit the website, how mobile friendly is it, and all of those kind of things. Now, these are not new concepts. The only thing that's becoming new is how the search engines actually value your site based on it, right? Back in the day, you could have the ugliest, worst, most unuser-friendly website, and as long as it was keyword stuffed and you had a plethora of backlinks pointing to it, you were going to be number one. And that's now changing. You could be a really high authority website, but just because the user experience is terrible, you might get penalized for that.
That's interesting. So do you feel like, is it possible to be a good SEO firm these days without having developers on staff, being a web shop at the same time?
That's a brilliant question, and the answer is it depends on what size you're operating at, right? So we have an agency alongside SEO Butler, and we mostly deal with enterprise-sized e-commerce businesses. So the majority of those have their own dev teams, either in-house or on retainer, and we don't want the liability of messing something up on a site that's doing 100 grand a day, because if we mess something up, that's some 6 or sometimes 7-figure losses. So for them, it's one of those things where we work really closely with the dev team. But then when you look at the smaller side of SEO, where you're dealing with local clients and that kind of stuff, it's going to be really difficult to really deliver on your promises without at least having rudimentary knowledge of how to improve the user experience of the site, be it through some site speed optimization, or being through how to install an SSL certificate and all of those kind of things. So I guess it's a tricky one to answer, and I would really say that it depends on the size of the type of campaigns you're running.
Can you speak a little bit to people who may be watching when we talk about, okay, so Google's now looking at the usability experience of a website, right? And I think the first thing that comes to mind is obviously speed. Does the site load fast for the person who clicks through? But what are the other types of signals that tell Google, hey, the person that came here did have a good user experience? Can you throw out a few just to get people thinking of like
Sure.
what we're talking about when we say user experience?
Sure. So when you talk about specifically how search engines are able to gauge that, there are a couple of different elements. I mean, the first one is that because Google has Google Analytics and in a lot of cases Google Search Console installed on your website, it is able to communicate with the Chrome browser, right? So there's data being passed all the time. And so one of the first things that it checks for is like how many elements was the browser not able to load, for example. So if there's just broken code on your website, then of course the loading time, that's really easy. They just crawl the site and see how long it takes for the first piece of content to actually be delivered to the crawler that's requesting it. From there, we then start looking at things like dwell time and bounce rate. So how long is a user actually spending on a page, and what is the next action that the user takes after they've visited your page? Do they abandon the website, or do they click through to other pages? This is why we always stress it, that your content should not just be really good to read, but it should also lead the user to taking another action, which, in the case of an e-commerce store would be, if it's on a blog, your blog post should drive them into the product category or to the product page. If it's on a lead generation website, like, you're an attorney or you're a doctor or whatever, then it should lead you into browsing the services or making an inquiry. And so all of these things are like tiny little nuances that they are able to analyze and then create like this great big score almost of how well your website's performing.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I hit the page, I scroll around, I'm spending time there. I didn't jump back to the Google search results. Maybe I clicked a video. That's probably, I would assume, a positive trigger, right? Like, okay, there was something appealing on the page. They clicked it. Now they watched the video. Then they clicked through to the contact page and they submitted a form. Stuff like that.
Exactly.
Cool. Now let's talk about the one that nobody likes to talk about, backlinks. Back in the
Right.
day, it was an absolute necessity, and it was a game of like, can you safely acquire backlinks for a client? What's the state of backlinks in 2021?
Sure. So you hit the nail on the head, right? You can't just spam anymore. I mean, back in the day, you could literally run software like the GSA was a really a popular one where you would literally set up the software on a server and it would just go out and like spam blog comments. And overnight, you'd get like 10,000 links to your website, and the search engines would be like, "Oh, this website must be really authoritative. It just got 10,000 backlinks, right?" And it would rank you. Those days are long, long gone. Nowadays, we're talking more and more about quality, just like we are with the websites themselves and with the content that we are having to put on the website. The exact same kind of rule of thumb goes for the backlinks. What you're really looking for is authority, context, and just overall sort of niche relevance, right? So authority, the best way to look at it is like, you really want your backlinks to come from a website that has ideally more authority than your website has. So a good example of that would be your website is a dental practice, and then the link comes from the American Association of Dentists, right? That would be a really high authority link. Another one that loads of people know of would be like Wikipedia, for example. And context is that what we're looking for is that the link actually makes sense. It doesn't make sense for a builder to get a backlink from the American Association of Dentists because there's just no relevance there. So it makes it a lot of it is really common sense once you start to think about it. It's just like, how do I show the search engine that my website has authority to speak about the given subject matter? And the easiest way to say that is, well, look at all of these other authorities that are referencing my content to say that this is great or this is relevant. So one of the most typical methods that people are building links with right now is by conducting outreach. And outreach is done in a really boring way. Basically, you go out and you build yourself a list of websites that you would like to have a backlink from, and then you contact those websites and you say, "Hey, look, I'm yada yada yada, and I would like to contribute some content to your website. Would you be willing to do that?" You then write them a really a really well optimized article talking about your subject matter, adding value to their website, and then in that content you link back to yourself. That's one of the methods. There are loads of other methods, but a lot of the really, really successful ones are better applied to bigger websites or bigger businesses, because one of them would be to do like a PR stunt, right? So you conduct some research and you publish that research on your website and you write it up and you reach out to loads of authorities, which might be news sources, which might be industry sources, and you say, "Hey, look, we've conducted this research and I would really like you to reference it in this article, or I'd really like to help you create an article that references it." Yada yada yada. But the problem is that's really difficult to do for that dental website, for that construction website, right? It works much better when, we take you guys, for example. We could easily find data on your business to say, well, with Go HighLevel, here's how much the average marketer has saved in time in 2020, and create a great big study, create a beautiful infographic, and then do outreach to all of the marketing authorities and stuff like that, and say, "Look, we did this research and here's what we found, how much time people save by using one software instead of using 10 to achieve their funnel management," right? And that is a home run. Again, really difficult to do for those dentists and builders out there.
Yeah, I mean, when you listen to it, it's a really involved process. And I think, and I would also say that that's a very white hat process, right?
Yeah.
There's no risk in that. If you do it that
Yeah.
way and you do acquire the links, those are like beautiful, primo, never going to have to worry about
Mhm.
them, as opposed to working with people who have spent years building up an authority site in a specific
Mhm.
niche, who are then willing to make deals to
Yeah,
publish links on those types of sites, right?
yeah. And that's exactly, like, again, you hit the nail on the head. It's all about um what risk are you willing to take, right?
Mhm.
And so if you're working on your own affiliate project, then take all the risk you want. Like, you're jeopardizing your own income, right?
So
Whereas
talk to me
if,
about that. If I come to you and I'm like, I'm ready to roll the dice, baby, like let's get this thing ranking as fast as possible. What do you tell me?
well, you would probably end up doing stuff like PBNs, which are private blog networks, which are basically links on managed sites. So somebody has bought a bunch of domains that have high authority and built them out as blogs and then sells you links on them. Um, uh, Probably there's something referred to as niche edits, which is very popular. Those are typically links placed on hacked sites. That's become very popular in the industry. But
That
the
doesn't sound
problem
very
is,
safe.
no, and well, and the problem is too. I would never ever want to be caught trying to use something like that to rank my client's sites, right? If that's the kind of thing that you're into and you want to do it for your own affiliate site, that's one thing. Um, but doing this on somebody else's property is pretty ballsy, and I would not recommend it. We've those methods, they can work, and there are plenty of people in the industry that rank sites making money with them, etc. But the problem is, you're obviously jeopardizing somebody's livelihood then, so it's probably a pretty bad idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course. So let's talk about what you do for other people. So SEO Butler is works with in a B2B atmosphere, white labeled support. Well, not white label, right? So typically, let's say our community. We have a lot of marketers in our community who may deliver services like website design or lead generation, and then they have their clients asking them, "Well, can you also help me improve my rankings?" And
Right.
so lots of them are looking for partners to white label SEO services so that they don't have to tell their clients, no, go find somebody else. So they can say, sure, we can take care of that for you. And then they just sort of outsource the work. And when I
Sure.
was talking to you about that, I was like, you guys do lots of white label, right? And you said, well, we're more of an SEO partner than we are a white label provider. Can you talk to me about the difference between the two?
Sure. Sure. So let's
And
start
I'm
at the
going to
beginning.
mute. I don't know if you can hear my dog snoring
Oh
maybe, but
yeah,
I'm
no,
going
it's adorable.
to.
So, first things first, let's start off with the productized services. With the productized services, it's a website. You go on it, you can order content, backlinks, and a couple of other products as well. The content is really the easiest to explain. We have writers in the US and in the UK, and a great example is one that you just mentioned. It's a marketer that's building websites for clients, right? Most of the time, those marketers don't want to write the content, and 9 times out of 10, the client promises you the content and then doesn't deliver because they've gotten
Oh, yeah.
busy,
Been there
right?
many times.
So so those kind of people come to our website and they say, okay, look, I'm building this lawn care guy's website, and I need like 5 landing pages and 3 blog posts so I can deliver the website. And they give us all the details of, the business name, what the website's going to look like, what they expect. And then our team goes away, writes all of that up for them and delivers it for them so that they can then deploy it on their website. And obviously they should make a margin on that too. Now, from from the SEO Butler side, that's basically all we do. People come to the website, they place an order, we deliver the order, and that's it. What we were talking about before was the agency model, and it was really interesting because you mentioned, like, do you guys white label, and how, what's your experience with that? And we started doing a complete white label program. And what that meant is that people would come to us, they would say, look, I have this website, it's my client's website, and I would like to offer them SEO. Are you able to do the SEO for me? And then I upsell it to the client, basically, and you give me white label reports. We tried that for a while, and the biggest problem was that the agencies that were outsourcing the work to us would always become a bottleneck, right? So we work in a really involved way, which means that we have content approvals all the time. We have website changes that we're trying to make that need approvals. We have strategy calls, right? And so it goes from us being able to sit down with a client on a 15-minute call to us having to teach another person how to have that call on our behalf. And so what we found is that our churn rate was actually quite high, but we were convinced that the work that we were doing was really good. So we're like, somewhere this isn't working out. So what we
Whisper
started to
down the
do,
lane problem.
yeah,
You
exactly.
started
So what
out
we,
correct.
yeah, no, it was painful. And like we had great clients through our partners as well. So it was really painful to see them go. Um, so what we started to do is we started to work in partnerships with our clients, well, with our partners. And the way that that worked is that, let's say you are a PPC guy yourself, Chase, and you say, look, I've got this PPC client. They love the work that I'm doing for them. They now want to start some SEO just to kind of hedge their bets a little bit. Well, what you would do is you would introduce us as your partners who specialize in SEO, right? We would jump on a call, the three of us, and we would walk them through everything, and then we would close the deal. From that moment onwards, we would be the direct contact for that client for SEO. But behind all of that, we would be paying you an ongoing commission to like say thanks for the introduction. You would also be able to have access to the project management and stuff like that to make sure that we're not trying to do anything without your consent. Now, what we realized by doing that is that our partners had a lot less work to do on like keeping the clients engaged, etc. And our retention rate like just shot up, which is obviously a good thing for the partner because they're making that commission for longer. The other thing that we noticed is that we would pay really good commissions, but in a lot of cases when we were white labeling, people would absolutely rip their customers off. And that is just the honest truth. Like we would charge, let's say we would charge $1,500 for this retainer. We would have clients that are charging their client $4,000. Well, there's no way that within a $1,500 retainer that we can make a profit and deliver $4,000 worth of service, on such an involved thing. So obviously that's going to crush your retention rate as well. Whereas if we say we're going to add a $500 commission for all of perpetuity, then the likelihood of the service and cost equation not adding up is much smaller.
It makes total sense. I mean, I've been there. So our agency, we actually white labeled some services at one point in time, including SEO. And you mentioned a great point with the meetings. It was like oftentimes the partner or the customer would come back and be like, "Hey, I need you guys to do this," and we would say, "What do you mean? Why would we do that?
Right.
Don't do that." Oh, well, I was on the phone with them and they pressed me and I said yes, and it's like, well, why did you say yes? You should have checked with us first. And now you're in this position where like everyone's set up to fail. So to me, it makes total sense, and I really love it because what I'm trying to do, this guy. Especially with our new SaaS mode, is to get people thinking in terms of, hey, become the platform partner, become the partner that comes in, improves things, puts them on a better system, automates a bunch of things, earn their trust, and then operate as what I like to call the general contractor, right? Like when you're building a house or something, you have a general contractor who comes in and he finds the electrician, he finds the plumber, and he can fire them too if they're not working out, but you never get rid of the general contractor, right? So instead of pretending that you do SEO and putting yourself in a potentially awkward position, I love the idea of saying, hey, we know a bunch of great SEOs in the industry. Let us bring one in that we think will be good for your project. And, we'll monitor them, we'll work with them closely. You're going to work directly with them. But if for some reason it doesn't work out, hey, we know others and we can replace them for you.
Exactly.
And you know what I mean? I love to be in that position. And I think the results, sounds like you've got plenty of case studies to show that the retention goes up, the churn goes down when it's more of a partnership and you have direct access to the client. I love it.
I think too, the other thing is that it actually makes you seem even more authoritative because you're now you're now like their brand ambassador almost. You are able to put yourself in a position where you're on the client side rather
Right.
than on the agency side, because you're their guy that's managing all of these extra activities for them. So if something should ever go not so well, then you're still on their side and you can say, okay, don't worry about it. Let me see what I can sort out for you, rather than them telling you that you messed up and that everything's your fault, etc. So it really puts the partner in a much better position. And like you said, it also opens you up to continuously be able to grow that relationship. In the beginning, you might have brought them on for the software and to help them with the setup and all of that. Then you bring on board an SEO. Eventually it's a Facebook marketer. Eventually it's this, etc. So it really
Yeah,
works very
and the
well.
flip is if you're pretending and you're white labeling and it doesn't go well, you risk losing all the other things that you do really
Yeah,
great for the client over that one thing that you should, you know what I mean? It wasn't in your wheelhouse.
exactly. Exactly.
Cool.
Well, and also you end up spending a lot of time on the phone, right?
Mm.
Like, and that's the issue, because you're constantly getting information from the people you're white labeling from and having to transmit it. This isn't so much of a problem when you're dealing with really small clients, but when you're dealing with much bigger retainers, we have some clients we're on the phone with once a week. And so if I had to now explain that to someone and then they explained it to that person, it'd become a nightmare.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So just to clarify, you only work with big e-commerce or you work with big e-commerce partners and small business agencies partners as well?
We sometimes work with smaller partners as well. We're quite picky, to be honest with you. We're in the very luxurious position now to where we get to pick and choose what we want to work on a little bit. So our kind of sweet spot is big ecom on the agency side. On the SEO Butler side, we work with everyone. It's small businesses, digital marketers, website owners, shop owners, everything.
Okay, great. So I'm glad I clarified because I know there's going to be a bunch of people that watch this. They were really interested and want to reach out, but I didn't want
Yeah.
to be sending them your way if it was like, no, we only deal with big Shopify accounts.
Yeah,
Um,
no, no, no.
cool. So if they are interested, the URL is seobutler.com.
That's right.
Fantastic. Well, John, thanks for coming on. I hope you have a really happy holidays. I appreciate you doing this last minute right before the big break. And I hope you guys have as much success as possible in 2021.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chase. I wish that for all of us, the way things are going. So
Right? We deserve
hopefully,
it.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And thanks everybody for watching. We will see you in the next episode, which will probably be in the new year.